This is the panel saw. It's great for cutting sheet material like plywood, particle board, and those types of things. You can fit a full 4-foot by 8-foot sheet on this saw. You can also use it for cross-cutting solid wood, and this saw can make vertical and horizontal cuts as well. Let me point out a few things about this saw. Over here we've got our buttons. We've got our start, stop, and emergency stop button. We have a ruler that runs along the saw, starting at 0 here and running in both directions. We've got a measurement stop here that can be used. It can be folded down and set to a specific measurement. You can unclamp it and slide it along its track, clamp it back into place to use. Or if it's in your way and you want it out of the way, rather than taking it off, you can just fold it back up out of the way. You can set your material along the base down here, or if you want your material up a little higher, we've got these retractable feet that can hold it up, or you can push those back out of the way. There's a little black lever down here that allows you to push those back out of the way as well. Okay, so like I said, this can make vertical and horizontal cuts. To do it safely, we want to be cutting against the rotation of the blade, which means that we are always cutting top to bottom. Or if we change for horizontal cuts, then we would want to be cutting from left to right. So safe cuts are from top to bottom and left to right. The next safety guideline is just to make sure you have your material set firmly either against the base or whether it's up on these feet as well. Just make sure that it's steady so it's not going to move as you're cutting it. If you are making a horizontal cut, then we want to make sure it doesn't slide as we're cutting. And so over here we've got a couple of stops that you can set up so that it holds your panel in place from left to right. Okay, so for making a vertical cut, you're going to set your measurement stop as needed. You're going to turn the machine on, bring the saw up to the top. You're going to push the saw into place. Go ahead and make your cut. Make sure that you go all the way through your material. Pull the blade back out and then return it to the top. If for whatever reason this isn't a good location for the saw for making your cut, we have 3 other locations that it can be. So if you're going to move the location of the saw, you need to pull this black bar out to unlock it. You can slide the whole thing to the side. And we're just looking up top to match those red marks to red marks. Okay? So if I was bringing it back this way, match up those red marks and clamp that bar back into place. Do remember to make any adjustments before you make your cut and with the saw off. Once you have all your adjustments, then you can go ahead and turn it on and make your cut. Also keep in mind, if you are moving the location of the saw, then that does change the ruler setting. So instead of at 0, your mark over here would be 40, or over here would be 80. So you may have to do some math and change your measurements based on that to make sure that you're cutting exactly what you want. For a horizontal cut, the first thing we'll do is change the direction of the saw. So I'm going to pull back on these handles, turn the saw, and then push back in. I'll unlock this bar so that it can move from left to right. But the danger here is we do not want it cutting from left to right and top to bottom at the same time. That would break the blade. So we need to lock this into place so that this saw itself won't move up and down. It'll only move left to right. If your material is along the bottom, then you're going to be using this ruler that starts down lower. And if your material is up here on these other feet, then you're going to be using the ruler that starts higher. So you can lock the measurement into place and cut horizontally as well. I need to cut down some plywood for some skateboards, so I'll show you an example of a vertical and a horizontal cut, and I'll kind of talk you through it as I go. I'm going to start with a horizontal cut. My plywood is 60 inches tall, and my first cut needs to be 9 15/16. I'm going to have my material along the base, so I'm using this ruler that extends down lower. So I'm going to match that up to my measurement and lock that in place, so now this can move side to side that way. Let me go get my material. This is 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood, so I'm going to carefully cut 3 sheets at once. If you remember, the other thing when you're doing a horizontal cut is I need to make sure to have this stop set up, and I'm going to push my material all the way until it gets to that stop. Okay, I've got things set up. I'm going to bring my saw to the left since I'm cutting left to right. I'm going to steady my material here by hand, and I'll go ahead and make my cut. Okay, my next cut I need to make the same distance, which means I need to bring my blade down just a bit. Okay, now I need to make some vertical cuts, so that's the next setup. I'm going to loosen my clamp here, turn my saw, match the red marks up above and lock it into place. Okay, I'm going to set my measurement stop to 9 15/16. And then slide my material up against that. So now I'm ready to cut vertically, and I'm just going to go from top to bottom. This one I won't need to change. I'll just scoop my material over each time I make the cut. When you're done using the panel saw, make sure to return it to its normal operating position, which is with the saw at the top, with the measurement stop folded out of the way, and with the saw set on its location of 0 on the ruler. If you're not confident with setting up the panel saw, then don't hesitate to ask me for help, and I'd be happy to double check your setup before you make a cut. So that's the panel saw. Please make sure to follow all the safety guidelines as you use this machine.